Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan.
This
Stone.
is Dexter from The Offspring.
Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Labb.
This is Stewart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Christopher
This is
Knopf.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hi, this is Andy Summers, and you are listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
Andy Summers has been a photographer who has displayed his work internationally, and a film composer, having scored two of my favorite films, Wildlife and Weekend at Bernie's, among others. Of course, he's probably best known for being one of Rolling Stone's 100 greatest guitarists of all time, and he's with us to promote his upcoming shows at the Regent in LA and the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco in support of his latest solo album, Triboluminescence. Pete and I love his work, we love his personal style, and we're elated to have him on. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here.
Just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all you've done for us. I love art, and I love seeing what good art is, and so thank you. I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
We met Dennis, your guitar tech.
Oh, yeah.
He did you a great service by, we knocked on the door,
Mm-hmm.
He answered the door, we said, hi, we're John and Pete, and we're here to see Andy. And he straightened his shoulders up and looked us square in the face and said, no, you're not. And we thought, oh, we like this guy.
Yeah, he has a good English sense of humor. Yeah.
You guys have been together for a while, I think.
Yeah, we've pretty much worked together since the 80s. And, no Dennis, no Andy. That's the way it goes now.
Wow.
We work very well together, obviously on many levels. Currently we're doing photography. Dennis has been responsible for a lot of the tech side of being able to put this show together. And of course, we've done 5 million music shows all over the world. Dennis is always with me doing the tech side. Like we're going off to Brazil in June, and he'll be down there just making sure everything's together.
Yeah.
So currently, I just played in Arizona at the MIM, the Musical Instrument Museum, which is a really wonderful place. They have a beautiful theater there, and we sold that out and played on Tuesday night. And this is where I play to projected photography, so streaming photography. That's a little different setup technically for most venues. They were very good at the MIM. It's photography that I've shot all over the world: China, Nepal, Tibet, Myanmar, Southeast Asia. So there's a lot of quite exotic photography that runs, and I have various tracks playing to it, and I play, some of it I play just solo, improvising. And some of it I use a backing track from Triboluminescence, where I literally go back to Pro Tools, take out the original lead guitar part maybe, and then use the rest of it to play to where I project the photography. But so it's a multimedia show. I do a little Q&A. I play some solo guitar pieces, do a Q&A. I also read some short stories that I've been writing for a few years now that are sort of bleak, like black comedy stories that somehow or other will involve a guitar or music of some sort. So there is a sort of thematic approach to it, but mostly they're about, how can I put this politely, situations that don't go well. Yeah.
What art do you not participate in? Because you write, you score, you paint, you picture.
Well, I'm a believer that, one thing can lead you into another. Obviously my initial information comes from music.
Mm-hmm.
I started as a kid. I had piano lessons for years, and I picked up the guitar. Of course, that became a complete obsession. I went to college in California, so I became a fairly highly trained musician. But I not dabbled, because I don't think that's the right word. My initial impulses were to jazz improvisation when I was a kid, because that was the hippest thing to do. And I was really trying to figure out hundreds of hours of time of what Wes Montgomery was playing, or people like that. Spending hours hunched over a record player and trying to get every solo note for note until I could do that. I could play all of West Coast blues solo at 16, which was pretty good.
What drew you to Northridge then? The school?
Well, I ended up out here sort of by default, and I got very much into music study, classical guitar, and one thing led to another, and I ended up going to Northridge and for the next 4 years and doing that. I literally put down the electric guitar and picked up the classical guitar and just went for it for about 5 years. Then came back to the electric guitar and then sort of poured it all into one thing. And then suddenly I was in this rock band called The Police.
We've heard of them.
Yeah.
As somebody with a jazz background and all the improv therein, when you do a multimedia show like this where you take out your lead track and you play against it, how much do you allow yourself space to improvise?
Well, it's pretty good, and it's interesting because, I made the recording of Triboluminescence, which is fairly complex and sort of exotic, but I've already felt like live on stage, I could go back on the track for this purely live purpose and add some more drums there. So there's a lot more because it's fairly spaced out in the guitar solo. Obviously, the studio thing is different. Now live, I'm thinking, I could use a bit more drumming in there, and I might go back and do some drums on a couple of the things I'm playing. This is just what I'm finding out after one show. I mean, it all went very well, but I know what I would like to hear a bit more of to play against. It's just kind of. Well, it is musical. It's absolutely musical and, technical at the same time. So before we do the LA show, I might address a couple of issues like that. But there's a lot of space. Yeah, it's purely, I don't have a set thing.
Yeah.
Because the original parts, say, on the track.
And your explorations there.
Yeah, it's true. This is like any band, any live situation. You go out, you do one show, and you immediately learn in one show far more than you did in a month of rehearsal.
Right.
I know. Okay, here's what, Dennis and I immediately got in touch. Okay, do this, let's do that, let's shorten it. So, yeah, it's typical. So, you see a show in January, you see it again in August, and boy, it's really streamlined. This is just natural process.
How much does the show change, though, once you and Dennis have it locked in and you know what it's supposed to be?
Well, it went down extremely well the other night, and I, of course, was very pleased. Because, I don't think people have seen anything quite like this before, and even the way I start the show is pretty avant-garde. Yeah. It's...
You're avant-garde? I don't buy it.
Now, wait till you see the show, man. No, it is. It's there's abstraction in there. It's not just like a catchy melody. This is something else altogether.
Yeah.
But it's fairly compelling because of the guitar sounds I use. And obviously this is just choices I've made with the photography. It all works together. That's the whole point of I'm bringing this multimedia show and I'm matching the playing and the music to the photography.
Yeah.
But I think it's fairly unique because I've been very privileged to have traveled in a lot of very exotic countries and done some fine art photography. I don't go out into places like China and do National Geographic. I'm looking for surrealism, and because I've done this for quite a few years now, so I have a big collection to draw from. What's interesting is why did it take me so long to get around to this?
Yeah,
because I've been doing this for years, photography, and it's a big thing for me. It's just like music. I'm very into it. It's improvisational. I'm making choices, aesthetic decisions. And I never thought really to marry it up with music and do a live show of it. And it was actually, I'll tell you what the seed was for it. We did it last year in a huge hurry at the Grammy Museum in LA, and it went down storm. I did it in about 2 days flat. So I said to them, I'll come down. They said, do you want to be at the Grammy Museum, do a little thing? I said, yeah, sure. I'll do photography and music. I never even realized what I was saying. And then, of course...
You just blurted out the words and then you were stuck to it.
You're exactly right. I sort of blurted it out, and then, of course, I dropped myself in this deep hole and went, oh, my God. And we sort of very hurriedly pulled it together, but it went down great. And that was when I went, okay, I think we should take this idea and run with it and expand it. So it's been a phenomenal amount of work, but hugely enabled by the digital revolution, because I've got all my chosen pictures, let's say, up on a big 27-inch screen now. Now, I never used to be able to do that. So everything has become doable. It's still very time-consuming. But, I mean, literally... Going back to the negatives, scanning them, bringing them down, reworking the picture in Photoshop, bringing it up. Oh, yeah, it's a whole process. So we've gotten through a great deal of it, but I think already we would add more and refine and change the sequences a little bit. It's typical.
As you do create this tapestry with the pictures, I saw New Order play at the Hollywood Bowl. They've got this same show they've done for a number of years now, but they've got it down like they move in time with the images behind them, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
But as you take these pictures and you're in Nepal or wherever it is.
Yeah.
The picture can say one thing, but then you can go in later and filter it and change it to make it say something, or do you stick with
textualize it really?
Yeah,
musically.
exactly. Or do you stick with image as it is in its natural state? I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of multi-pronged answer to that. Obviously, I'm going to try to make very compelling images. It's like anything. Not every photograph I shoot is a great one.
Right.
There's always just some crap in there. It's inevitable if you shoot a lot, but I'm very good at it. So what can I say? My eye, it's just like music, a talent for music. You develop it, you refine it, and you definitely get better at it. And I think my average is higher than it was, say, 20 years ago.
Sure.
So, and I think doing things like this gives you more information. You go, okay, now when I go out next time, I'm going to go and I'm going to be looking for certain things. I'm trying to match the music to the photography. I think it's working really well. What can I say? It's interesting to see what it's going to do to me.
Yeah.
If I go out and do this for 6 months and then I go off to Turkey or somewhere and shoot a bunch of photographs, I'll have like some other things in my head.
Yeah.
Also, a big factor in, it's like now when we played at the MIM in Arizona the other night, we're on a gigantic screen. It's very thrilling for me to see my pictures this big. It's like I made a movie. Amazing. So, there's difference between, the horizontal actually looks much better on the screen because it fills the whole screen. And I've tended for many years to turn the camera on its side and shoot vertically because I'm always thinking about pages in a book. Vertical tends to work better. But this setup, you need more horizontal images. So these are little things that come in
that inform what your
they do.
What your
they
eye
do.
is. So we have Robert Greenberg, the composer, is a frequent guest, and one of the things he's told us about is that Beethoven was writing music for the piano before the piano existed because physically they couldn't build something that would play those notes, but he still knew somehow intuitively to go ahead and write for it because someday it would happen.
Yeah.
I think that what you're describing is a convergence of the things that you've shot thousands and thousands of images from around the world over years, now meeting a place where, now I can use these things.
Yeah.
And if you're going to project images, now it changes what you're looking through your lens at because of that. Right?
Yeah. I like this kind of the mixing of the two and to see if it produces yet another baby. It's an interesting situation. I'm just sort of surprised that I didn't do it before. I don't know. Because what I liked, there's a sort of place that's filled for me, and this initially came from the photography because when I was a kid, in my hometown in England, I used to go to a place called the Continental Cinema, and I saw, the Truffaut films, the Bergman, the Fellini, Black Orpheus, all these that were, I'm like 16, 17 years old. These had a huge emotional impact on me. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. This black and white films I saw that was so compelling. But of course, I was obsessed with the guitar.
Yeah.
So my head really never came up from the guitar. I was like, oh, well, you could really be a filmmaker or something. And so fast forward a few years, and then, I'm in the police, and, suddenly we've got all this time on our hands. And you go, oh, my God, I'm going to be on the road for the next 10 years, just sitting in hotel rooms. I'll do photography.
You better take up a hobby.
It's like, all right, well, I'll be a good photographer, just like that. And of course, I was surrounded by photographers, and I got a very nice Nikon FE, I think, in New York. And I started going for it.
Yeah.
Never know that I had really any feeling for it. After a week, I didn't put it away.
Right.
I was into it. Yeah. And so obviously it was in me. And later I realized, there's shooting this stuff and looking at these incredible photographers like Robert Frank, and Ralph Gibson, and Lee Friedlander, all the great Diane Arbus. It fulfilled something. I mean, not that I wasn't fulfilled in music, obviously, but I think I was picking up on that thing that I got when I was a kid from all those great European art house movies, and started to, spend a lot of time with the camera as well. Because obviously, when you're on the road, you
have time.
Yeah, you have time to do the stuff.
You're at the point in your career where you've built a legacy, and you get to make the choices that you want to do, whatever it is.
Let me say this, Pete.
Yeah.
I think there are people out there who wonder, golly, I hate, how is it these rock stars get paid all this money? But this is why, because there are sensibilities in the human experience that we want to feed. And when somebody comes along and has something to contribute that make the rest of us wake up in a way, we want to give somebody the freedom to explore these things because they take us and they take humanity in a direction.
Yeah.
That's a huge responsibility. How do you feel about it?
Well, it is. And, I guess in my purest, most spiritual part of my being, you hope that you are actually contributing something and waking people up to something, So, very simply put, you do a concert. Yeah. I hope people walk away feeling better about everything, like, oh, man, that's a waste of time. No, they feel better about life, and everything's good. And somehow it was a really good moment. Mm-hmm. And,
having learned something. Having been enlightened somehow.
You do. You don't want to talk about that too much, but you do hope that underneath all of that, you're contributing something to people's lives. Otherwise, why are you doing that?
Well, and if you'll indulge us washing your balls for a minute, the thing that makes we jabbed at each other a little bit. It was fun, but the thing that made your guitar playing stand apart, I think, and made your playing special was probably that all those European art house films informed your musical textures.
Absolutely. I started off being like a complete jazz freak, and then I was getting into Coltrane and Miles as a kid, and all the hippest musicians were in New York, and this was the scene. Of course, later on, I lived in London. I'm in our rhythm and blues band, and then it was James Brown, Ray Charles, Otis Redding, and Rufus Thomas, and all this stuff that we played because we were a very popular band, and this is where it all started. But I was always absolutely, apart from playing Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, I was a guitar student.
Right.
I was studying all kinds of stuff and harmony and everything, and then finally, came to the States, and I went to Northridge. I took classical, and I did all that. So I became, it got, the quest for music, it got deeper and deeper. And I'm talking about harmonic knowledge, real,
very studious.
Yeah, like really knowing your the art and the craft of it, not like, I can play a few chords, this, or I only play the blues, or I just do rockabilly. I was different. This was my thing. Mm-hmm. So by the time I got to like the Police and Sting, Stewart, I was, reasonably well formed as a musician. I could play my ass off, and I knew a lot of music. I played a lot of classical guitar, and Sting in particular and I had very similar music background. He was very into classical guitar. He loved Bach and Villalobos as I did, and I could play these pieces to him. He used to go and play that one from that prelude. This is how we started. Yeah, not standard rock band stuff. Mm-hmm. And he was coming out of jazz fusion group. I played jazz since I was a kid. So, but we were a rock band, and we were in the punk era. So we had to take those sensibilities somehow and kind of hoist them into being a rock band. Yeah. So hence, you hear a band that is really sound is different than any sort of standard rock band, particularly because I was playing certain things on the guitar that other guitarists weren't playing. So it was a question of natural instinct and taste and specific avoidance of things that made us sound like anybody else. So when you get like a voice like Sting's, which is so wonderful, and, those reggae, simple lines that we took out of reggae bass lines, and then Stewart playing in that kind of middle tempo thing and picking up on this, and then the harmonies, you start to get something that, man, this is
that sounds
different.
Like nothing else.
Right, nothing else. Yeah. And has never been equaled, actually.
Going back to your artist sensibility now, where you're at, you've got the Otis Redding and all that stuff in the past. Obviously, your success in the Police, but you've for a long time been able to make whatever decisions you want. Who are your touch points? As you combine media together, you look at someone like I'm looking at your bookcase, and you got Picasso. He had different eras, different things he did. If he was alive now, he probably would make similar. Who's out there in front of you? You look at.
No one.
But that's fair because you are avant-garde.
Yeah.
And no one has cut this path. No one had the technology.
I think I'm doing something right now that's really pretty unique. And there's an interesting little sort of prelude to this, let's say, because obviously, I was developing my visual sensibilities over the years, and I've been lucky to have had a very strong, close friendship with really one of the all-time greatest photographers is a guy called Ralph Gibson, and he's in New York. He's wonderful. And I met him in the year around late 82, 83, and I was living in New York, and he helped me produce my first photo book, which was called Throb. It was strange how it got set up. I won't even go into the whole long story of that, but I connected with him, and I felt like I connect in a way. I sort of connected into the continuum of American art photography. Great guy. We totally hit it off as two guys hanging in New York and doing all this stuff. And he also happened to play the guitar, was really, passionate music person, and was like probably one of the really greatest photographers of all time. So he became my mentor, and so I got a lot of sensibility from him, and learned stuff on the pure inside that I would never have gotten from, like, say, a rock photographer.
Sure, okay.
So this was very important because this was like the real deal. This was an extremely hip, cutting-edge fine art sensibility in photography. We're still very tight friends. And anyway, fast forward many years, about 2 years ago, because we've done things together. We did a book together. We've done little appearances together. We've done stuff over the years as we can. I mean, really, he's a photographer. I'm a guitar player. But I take photographs and he plays the guitar.
Right.
So it's been perfect.
I always want to be something else.
Yeah. So there you go. It's funny how we go like this. We sort of trail each other like this. It's incredible. We were going to try and do, and it might still come to fruition, a dance thing in New York, like, we were going to create visuals and music for a dance program with a famous New York choreographer called Carol Armitage. And she was up for it because it's very, very expensive to put dance on. So it's been a while. We haven't really got there yet. So I said, okay, Ralph was going to make the videos and I was going to do the music. So I started into it with a lot of enthusiasm, and I was really thinking about dancers, not like, okay, I got to make a rock album or something. I'm like visualizing dancers on stage and movement and.
Do you think in dancing style then when you're doing this?
Yeah, well, very much modern dance, not ballet, modern dance, and trying to make it quirky and interesting. So my sensibilities were going there, and so I started to create a lot of music. And I'm in my studio in LA, Ralph's in New York. It's much easier for me because I'm in my studio, my environment that I know so well. So I started making all this thing, and it didn't look like in that period it was going to come to fruition. But I put so much music together. I thought, well, man, I can't waste all this effort, so let me kind of slightly remold it until it becomes an album, and that became the album called Metal Dog.
Right.
So that was 2015, I think that came out. So that's where it started from. It started from that, like, trying to make music to a visual aesthetic. See, so it was all playing into it. But that got me into writing really from a sonic base, not like working out a whole, like melody, harmony, A, B, B, C, another outtake solo, A, B, like standard song structure. Even if it is instrumental, I started being more experimental with it and using a lot of crazy sonic sounds that were influenced by world music and Balinese gamelan and all this, and starting to try and bring it into what I was doing. So it's more experimental, avant-garde, cutting edge. I mean, you still have to play very well, the guitar solos, whatever. So that's how it sort of came about, and I felt like this is sort of like meta jazz. So there's a jazz sensibility in there, but it's not really jazz. It's got these much more exotic instruments in it. And so instead of, say, like a piano playing chords, that you would solo over, I would have loops, exotic loops, combined with percussion. So I started to move into a new kind of musical territory.
Can you just jump that far ahead, though, or do you need to progress to that frontier that you're on? Because that's definitely, to have the comfort, not to say the courage, but the comfort to say, I'm not going to solo over a piano playing chords, and I'm going to grab these exotic things and loop them.
Yeah, of course, I've been around music for a long time, so I have a lot of knowledge about, Brian Eno, ambient music, other stuff. And remember, I made those 2 records with Robert Fripp in the mid-'80s that were very influential, and they were hit records, and that came from me basically the idea of doing that. But so I'm very aware of all kinds of music, and so it's in my head. But this time I really sort of wanted to push into this more sonic territory. But that doesn't mean that it's ugly to listen to. You got to make it. The way, I mean, specifically, I'll set up equipment in the studio, whatever, and it's very experimental. I'm trying things. I'm hooking things up differently until I go, man, I think that's.
There's something.
That's something. Let's record 20 bars without 16 bars, whatever.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can play over it, or I could extend it. Let's see if we can extend it into another piece. So it's a setup. First thing, okay, it's a very fresh point. I haven't heard anything quite like that. Now let me see if I can develop it into a composition. So this is all very much in the studio, but you still got to have your composing chops and build it into something that makes sense on some level.
So that's when you stole Dennis from Robert Fripp.
Well,
and
it was.
He came over because you had some esoteric sensibility that he thought, you know what, this isn't bonkers. I'm going to follow this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was very nice. I was working, I met Fripp. The thing is about Fripp and myself is that we were teenage guitarists in the same town in England.
Mm-hmm.
Not rivals exactly, because he was... No, we're just kids, no one knew who we were. He actually passed through a band that I was in. Many years later, I got together. He helped me out when I was sort of down and out in London, back in London. And then later, of course, I was in the police. And suggested that we make a record together. The two guitar players from Bournemouth in England. It's kind of crazy. And we actually went back to Bournemouth where we'd grown up, and there was an engineer there called Tony Arnold that was a sort of towering figure around, because he had a couple of American guitars when we were kids. Now, we're talking about rural England.
Love it.
And it's crazy stuff. We got together with him, and he was a wonderful engineer, and we eventually made the two records. But early on, I think it was in the first one, which was called I Advance Masked, we were trying to work, I think it was with an Oberheim drum machine, and we couldn't get it to work, this bloody thing. And Tony Arnold, the engineer, said, "Oh no, this guy, his name's Dennis, and he's good with this stuff. Let's get him over." And anyway, Dennis turned up. We were all a lot younger then, and guess what? He got the thing working, and great, he had that kind of focus. Very good. I was too impatient for it. And he stuck around, and suddenly
he wouldn't leave.
Everything got better. Suddenly everything sounded better. Everything was in place. He did everything. The leads looked good. He made the tea, and suddenly, everything was like kind of in a better state. And I thought, man, this guy's really useful,
Yeah.
This is good. And, I brought him up to London, and we did a couple of things. Then he went back home. Then he came up again. Eventually I got, it got to, I can't do it without.
Right. It's like glasses where, like, it becomes part of you. Like, I need this to see the world in a better way.
We're absolutely a team. And basically, no Dennis, no Andy. That's the way it is now.
Right.
It's over.
Well, I'm not ashamed to say that a lot of the guests that we get, we progress. And hey, if we talk to this guy, maybe he'll introduce us to that guy. And so maybe we're coming to see you just so we can get a little closer to Dennis.
I think that's the way it goes, because he's the real star. I'm just the idiot with a guitar, but the real deal is him.
We in our preparation, Pete and I will talk. What do you want to ask Andy Summers? And one of the things that we wanted to ask you about was the progression of a songwriter throughout life. And at some point you get to, where you're being listened to by a bunch of teenagers because you're writing songs about chasing girls. Yeah. And then at some point we evolve in our lives. Maybe you become less relevant in a way that makes you a pop star because you're not writing songs about chasing girls anymore. This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
And so we wanted to ask you about what a songwriter goes through as life progresses, and then suddenly you throw all this esoteric stuff about your process, and it makes that question kind of bullshit. But
no, I think I absolutely respect songwriting as a craft. But it doesn't really advance in the sense that you still got to. It's a song, unless you totally free form. Like, well, is that a song or what is it? We all know like this. You got to have an intro, then you have the verse, then you probably have another one. You might go. There might be a little instrumental break. You could even do a third one. See, there are all these song forms, and you might go to B, the bridge. You come back. You might do a solo, or you have a little instrumental passage. There's all these. There's various forms. It depends what genre of music you're in. And you have something called the climb, and there's very modern sensibility songwriting.
Yeah, and the vamp.
Yeah, it's a set of stuff. There's a set of stuff, and you learn it, and you can learn to do it. I certainly do it. I know thousands.
Obviously.
You played songs from time to time.
Yeah, I know it very well. And even in, let's just go somewhere else. Like even in jazz, I mean, most of the great jazz era, they're playing on, standards, the Great American Songbook,
Right.
AA, BA, maybe a C, Cole Porter, Gershwin, all these were great songwriters. They were songwriters. When you get to, let's say, the late 60s, early 70s, songwriting became a thing that everybody's supposed to be able to do. And, of course, that wasn't really true. Not everybody's a gifted songwriter. And it's a real thing that you need to focus on if you want to be a great songwriter, more than being a virtuoso instrumentalist. And then it got to like where everybody had to make personal statements, and it got much more personal. Then you're supposed to write about life experiences. So in your life, if you're a songwriter and you go on, and then you get to like you're 50 years old, you're still writing songs, and you've been divorced twice, and you've got 3 kids, and and a new dog. You start to write more inner stuff, I would think, unless you're very commercial and you're writing for music, and there are plenty of those in LA.
That sounded like the voice of experience.
Yeah, you can go, and you go, well, you know what, I don't really want to do it.
Yeah.
For me, it would be very personal. I thought, a really great rock record about 2 or 3 years ago called Circa Zero.
Yeah.
If you've never heard that one, with a great singer called Rob Giles. And anyway, that's another kind of story, but it was very much about songwriting, real songwriting, thinking about hooks and choruses and lyrics and how to make it fresh. There's so much information you need to take in. What is the song? Are you the writer, the composer of the music, or are you the lyricist, or are you both? See, a lot of people want to be both. Doesn't always work out, and people who tend to write very interesting lyrics, lots of heavy lyrics, tend not to be writing terribly interesting music because they're trying to get so many words in.
Different discipline.
Yeah,
really, a different approach.
It's something that as a songwriter you have to grapple with. I think how do you make the music interesting and have the lyrics be fresh? You get, I can't really, I don't want to sort of like diss anybody here, but sometimes certain songwriters, I don't know if this is true in like sort of singer, songwriter, folk type stuff. They're so intent on getting so many words literary on the page that the music is too simple for my taste. I don't want to hear it really. Think about somebody like Sting, of course, who's a real musician, plays extremely well and is very well versed harmonically. He sort of bridged that gap where he has got a very good lyric sensibility, literary sensibility, and he's able to, and his ears go to really hit music. Now, these are rarity, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, we do a little thing where we put 2 albums together, and this is completely cornball, but like we'll go track one, and we have them fight.
It's a weekly segment.
Yeah.
It's called the album fight.
Yeah, and so like track 1 will fight track 1 from 2 different albums, 2 comparable great albums.
But we treat it like a boxing match.
Yeah.
Score it like a boxing match.
It's a lot of fun, but you're right. You see some of that sensibility where you've written a song, it's very formulaic, and in this goofy format that you guys never would have thought of when you wrote an album, it isn't as good as the song that shows up for song 3 from the other album, and it's given us a real unique perspective as to the songwriting craft and what goes into putting not just a song on an album, but 10 songs or 12 songs to make a thematic thing. When you go to build an album, are you thinking in the album format still, or is that day gone?
No, it's a really good and very poignant question.
Thank you.
Because...
Yes, do you like my question?
Okay, let's go there. What was the question again?
Album formats, right?
Yeah.
You do.
No, right. Yeah, I do. See, I'm totally Mr. Analog.
Yeah.
Dude. I grew up, like many of us, with whole albums, and that you were supposed to take this journey through the album. And that's never left me. I know we come to an age with kids now, we've got Spotify and all this stuff. He said, not insulting any of it.
Right.
Whereas, short attention span, very fast, quick. That's not what I spent my life doing or growing up with. I grew up with the whole art of layering out an album, sequencing it so there's a certain thing that you would go through. Mm-hmm. And that was what the artist intended. So personally, same time you want every track to stand on its own.
Sure.
But my head has always been into, okay, you're going to do about 12 tracks. So I do tend to think somewhat thematically, and in terms of okay, we got about an hour, at least an hour of music here, or well, that's long actually.
Right.
Maybe 48 minutes, 50 minutes now. Yeah, no, that's the way I think. Absolutely.
Well, now you also have a visual sensibility that feeds into it. And this goes back to the point that I made about why we want to enable a person's artistic growth, not just a musician, but an artist's growth, so that you can explore these things as a whole body of work and have the time to think and to have the continuity. Because we want to still go on this journey with you. And now, if we're going to go on a multimedia journey with you, hopefully you've got the tools and you clearly have them, but now that the demands of a multimedia show are going to require the, continuity musically, the entertainment of us for an hour, but you're also thinking of the tie-ins visually, and, and leaving yourself room to improvise.
Yeah. Well, I've spent my whole life doing this, and I do think along those lines because I write as well. I mean, in this show, I read some short stories. Seemed to go extremely well the other night, and that's an interesting thing. Like short stories, but they can't be too long. Right. Because you're reading a story, and you read on about 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. There's a thing now as a genre in literature called flash fiction or microfiction.
Right.
Yeah, you got about 3 or 4 pages. And you've got to condense it, and you've got to learn how to do that. Because I've got a lot of these things, which I've been ultimately thinking I would put out as a book. They're pretty funny, most of them. But I can see live reading, you got to, tighten it up. Because what you read on a page, and you got when you're talking to an audience, you want to tighten that up. So I'm thinking a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's not a person sitting in a park on a sunny day reading a book, getting lost in a book.
Right.
You have an attention span to cater to. It's really the literary version of a pop song.
It kind of is. Yeah, it really is. And I really enjoy doing it. And I have a lot of these. But I'm looking at them now, going, okay, let me see if I can kind of micro this up a little bit. Yeah, to tighten it up. And some, it's like editing, and almost all art forms, whatever they are, they benefit from the tight edit. Mm-hmm. They only get better. They don't get weaker. So I'm going to look at that.
Do you think, are you still improving as a musician in terms of, have you reached the pinnacle of technical chops and you have to go in a different direction? Not that you're limited technically, but at some point you're just, the time.
Stop to pay attention to the.
Yeah. If you're already at a 9.9, do you put 100 hours into becoming a 9.99, or?
Well, yeah, it's a really good point. And, of course, I am the guy I am, and, the guitar and music is in my head all the time. I play guitar solos in my head, when I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Right.
It's been like that since I was about 11, nothing.
Does your internal jukebox ever shut off?
Not really. No. But yeah, so you go, okay, who am I as a guitar player? Now, what am I moving forward? Am I doing this? I'm doing that. I'm pretty, and I don't want to say satisfied because it sounds like you're in stasis, and I'm not. Because it never ends. I play every day, and I have to, because it's physical.
Yeah.
And you have to be an athlete, and you have to be able to have your chops up. And it's really true. If you play a lot, you're going to play better.
Yeah.
You play better. When I was doing the show in Arizona, I sat in my room, played a couple of hours. Played the 2 hours at least the day before. So I get my hands really moving, so I can get around. And I think I play very well, and
we think you play very well.
I'm doing my best, I know what I have, and I know what other guitar players have, and I don't want to necessarily compete and be everything with a lot of young kids who are out there playing. There's a whole shredding school, and that's not what I do.
Right.
But I can do things they can't do. I have a different feel. I know how strong my musical impulses are, how strong my feel for pulse, and then I play drums as well. I totally have it. And I
Those
play with a lot
shredders
of
are the guys who would never have come up with Murder by Numbers.
Yeah,
in a million years.
No, I mean, I appreciate this school that's come up with these, super fast, super light string, very light string players. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. I played in Shanghai not so long ago, and on this festival, I did 2 days, 2 afternoons, and I know a guy there who's helped me because I've played in Shanghai a lot. And I said, "Oh man, I'm not even going to bring a guitar. You got a spare Strat?" Yeah, okay, great, okay, yeah, very nice guy. He's a shredder. But see, this is the point. He's a shredder, and I said, "Oh, can you bring that Strat?" And he had some pedals, so I thought, okay, good. Okay, I think I can make it through this show. This killer, bass player and drummer. But he strung the guitar up for shredding, which is super light.
He strung it with sixes or something.
I mean, man, this stuff, I went, what is it, like elastic
it's
bands?
It's a speed machine.
It's like, blah, 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 yeah. And he plays like that. I mean, it's a whole other approach, but it wasn't for me. I mean, the strings were literally too light. I mean, I said, oh, man. You can't get a note out of this.
Yeah. It's fun. Yeah, we love Live from Daryl's House, Daryl Hall's show that he does, and he had Billy Gibbons on, and Billy told this story of when he met B.B. King, and they were talking about strings, and Billy's like, I play these big heavy strings, and B.B. looks at him and goes, why are you working so hard?
Yeah, yeah, right.
It's just great. So there's like a balance in there.
Yeah, well, this is all right inside stuff. For instance, I did the show in Arizona the other night, and I took a chance. I took out an old Gibson 330 with fairly heavy, flat wound strings. Now, this is not something I normally do.
Yeah.
Suddenly I was getting this vibe off these strings.
Really?
And one thing that I've stopped, in recent years, I play more and more without a pick. It's almost like African playing. I play thumb, first finger, second finger, and I'm lightning fast with it.
Yeah.
And I was getting this vibe, this feel on flat wound strings, like, oh man, it's so pretty, and it's not holding me back.
It was singing back at you.
Yeah. So I was coming to another place. I go, I think I might really have something here. These flat wound strings, this sort of woody sound, but playing with your fingers. This is different. See, I've always felt, as a guitar player, and some people feel differently, that, and I knew this when I was about 15, I'd like play with an extremely small pick. And I realized later it's because I'm closer to the strings. I'm literally closer to the guitar. And then, you move from the pick to the fingers. You know what? It's that connection.
Yeah.
And I started, I don't know if it's from Wes Montgomery, every time I'd ever play a ballad or anything and solo, I play it with the thumb, not the pick. The thumb would give me different phrasing, more romantic, beautiful, more soulful. So I got off Wes Montgomery, started to play with the thumb, and then of course I did years of full right hand classical guitar, and I started, playing with the first 3 fingers.
Stripping away limitations.
Well, and what it does is it gives you a different kind of phrasing.
Yeah.
So it's like a saxophone player finding a reed and an embouchure.
Yeah.
Suddenly I'm finding, in the hand equivalent for me was the thumb and the first 2 fingers, and suddenly like my speed has got way fast, and I'm phrasing very poetically.
Yeah.
Whereas with a pick, not as much. The pick is almost taking it away, and there are times when I want to use the pick because it's full speed. You go 100 miles an hour with a pick. But there you go. Anyway, this is sort of internal stuff that outside of all the blah blah blah, there's an inside story. This is like, well, what are you playing with?
But that's the stuff we love. We love understanding these things as you make these choices.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, I don't even know how to ask the question, but when that guitar does talk to you, is there something that triggers maybe in the back of your subconscious where it's like, grab this?
Yeah, and I picked up one guitar and went, oh God. I can't play.
Yes.
I can't play. It's not happening. It's not happening. Then I moved to another guitar and other strings until, okay, and it all starts coming out.
Yeah.
It was there. The one guitar didn't bring it out. The other one, the sound was suddenly, everything's like, now it's magic. Off we go. No problem.
I'd like an interlude with our younger listeners. What you're hearing from Andy Summers is not counter to the message that we say frequently, which is it's not the instrument, it's the player.
Yeah.
And and this is not a replacement for that statement. This is that you've come to a different place where you've exhausted certain instruments and now you need an instrument to speak back to you. Because we all know that kid who says, "Oh, well, if I only had if I had a Les Paul, I'd play better."
Yeah, let's comment on that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And, all these magazines, and it's the same in photography that, all the
If I had these
geeks
lenses,
and the freaks, they want this thing. They think that's not it at all. It's not it. It's all internal. It's all in your head. The mind is the camera. The mind is the guitar. This is really true. To think that it's the gear, but of course, all the magazines and the people who run that, they're saying,
they want to sell
you get
gear.
this, you're going to be the greatest player. No.
Yeah.
Not true.
Right.
So
you unlock the fingers.
Yeah. it's all no.
I talked to David Neely yesterday downtown on Sunset. He's a luthier. You guys have done things together before, but he's like, it's not Les Paul or Gibson or whatever. Like, you want to make that sound, you just slide your hand back a little bit and raise your hand up, and you'll get that kind of a sound. It's like just within the instrument you have, exhausting it. Like John was saying, like, I know every way to play this thing. I've played above the nut.
I've worn it out.
Everything,
Yeah. Well, music is a lifetime. Any of the arts is a lifetime, thing. You do it all your life, and you come to these things. But one of the first myths to dispel is that it's just not the instrument. It's the head, and that's where it really comes from. Yeah. Jeff Beck, for instance, he plays very simply with it for a Fender Twin, no gear. It's all in the hands.
Yeah.
He's a great player,
and he's got a signature sound for sure.
Well, he sure does, and he's not using any pedals as far as I know.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to actually come to the show in San Francisco, by the way.
Oh, great.
Palace of Fine Art. First off, you're going to play in L.A. at
the Regent.
At the Regent
Yep.
on the 14th of April. And then also you'll be at the Palace of Fine Arts on the 19th of April. And I'm for sure going to be there. John's going to be there.
Yep.
We're going to bring a crowd with us.
Great.
I want to see this experience.
Yeah. The other thing about these experiences is bring your eyes and your ears. And if you wear glasses, wear the glasses. Because, I'm nearsighted. And sometimes I'll go to a show and I'll go, well, I'm going to listen to music. I don't have to wear my glasses. But this is going to be a visual experience. It's a true multimedia experience. Go to andysummers.com. And you can link to the ticket purchase page. We're also going to link it on the show page. Yeah. You have given us more than your obligatory half hour that you promised us, and we really appreciate you sitting with us, Andy. This has been a, people tell you don't meet your heroes because they disappoint you, and you've been nothing but warm and charming and deep and given us lots of stuff. Pete and I were, always admirers of you, and we've loved your music for many, many years. Except for Mother, boy, did that bother me.
That was the point.
That's exactly what Pete said.
That's what I said. I'm like, because we had Synchronicity fight another album. I can't remember which one it was.
It was Def Leppard Pyromania.
Def Leppard Pyromania. It's a track for track, and I'm like, the whole point is that you're supposed to hate it because it's about your mother and things. So,
well, and I want to tell you this because I promised somebody I was going to tell you this. My wife has a very special relationship with her mother. They're very close, and they're very, it's clearly a mother-daughter relationship, but they are somewhat like sisters. Like, they will bicker. And so there are times when my wife's ringtone from my mother-in-law is Mother. Oh, you must be mad at your mom for something.
It's incredible that track actually got on that album. We were so popular. You would have thought the record company wouldn't let us do anything like they kind of accept it. And of course, in a weird way, it was the sort of standout track. Who viewed that track, Mother? It's really weird, Yeah. So anyway,
and it set the tone because you made a statement that allowed your audience to come with you when you left the police, and know that they were going to get something different.
Yeah. Well, people liked it actually because it was kind of funny and weird, and it was all right.
I have one question, if you'll indulge us. So we asked Stewart, we've asked other people, of your guys' caliber, what music that you are aware of right now, and maybe you just don't follow any kind of popular music, but who's doing what you guys did? Really moving the bar forward, speaking for a generation. Who's doing that now? That are you aware of or you think of?
But I'm not really got my ear really close to the ground in terms of rock or pop music. I was just trying to think. You mean like a young band?
Yeah. Who do you hear and your ear perks up and maybe you notice?
Well, the only one I can think of recently that and I did get a couple of their records because I thought, they really got something. Was a band called Grizzly Bear from New York.
Nice.
I really like the guy's voice, and I think some of the way they back the songs is really interesting. In particular, Grizzly Bear was the one I liked. Just trying to think if there's any other pop.
It's such a unique time for a band because anybody can do it, but it's very hard to accelerate up into the upper levels to really get noticed by a lot of people. You know?
Yeah, well, I think Grizzly Bear did all right. I think they played at the Wilton.
Okay.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, sort of upper echelon people like Taylor Swift just have no interest whatsoever in.
Right.
So I just don't listen to stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm very happy to be in my own headspace and my old kind of analog ivory tower at this point. I don't really care anymore. You know, I like to play well. I love playing with other people. Yeah, you know, it's all good. You know, but I can't possibly, you know, be listening to Spotify all day long. I just don't do that.
Right. You got it in your head anyhow.
It's all in my head.
Yeah.
And I really believe, actually, that you should keep this space in your head sacred. Don't fill it with everyone else's music. You know, if I listen to everything else, how am I going to come up with anything? You've got to be careful about that. You have to be very selective in what you listen to.
Interesting.
I used to like Wilco a bit. You know, they made a couple of interesting records. Once they got Nels Cline in, Nels is good. Yeah, there's some stuff.
That is the wisdom of Andy Summers.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah.
See you later.
We like you right where you are artistically, and your explorations are something that we're going to look forward to. So, the Regent, everybody, go to the Regent in L.A. on April 14th.
That's right.
Come with Pete and myself to the Palace of Fine Arts. Both beautiful places to see a show and places where you can experience. You chose these places for their...
Yeah, well, I like the Regent because, again, you know, it's Los Angeles. It's an old Art Deco theater. It's been there since, I think, 1914.
Wow.
And it's obviously been refurbished. I think it's, I went and had a look at it. Yeah, it's good. It's the right size. Palace of Fine Arts, again, another beautiful venue. And
yeah, the show starts the second you park and start walking up to it. I mean, that's just a gorgeous part of the world.
Yeah,
you know?
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, I just mentioned this because another unique thing. The night before, I'm doing a big photo show, which will at the Leica Gallery in central San Francisco, wherever it is. It's a beautiful gallery, and I'm showing some of the photos that will be seen with me playing live from a forthcoming book called The Bones of Chuang Tzu. Published by Steidl, and so we have a big exhibition at the night before, and then the next night I do the show. So it's a sort of a two-header in San Francisco, which is pretty wild.
What's your favorite place to eat in San Francisco?
Well, usually somewhere in Chinatown.
Okay.
You know, I went to an amazing Chinese place. I can't think what it's called. The guy said I'd go there. It's very funky, but the food is incredible. You know,
those are the best.
San Francisco.
Yeah, John's got a good place over there.
Those are the best.
Yeah.
I have a place that I go for dim sum.
Yeah.
And the three of us would get completely full on dim sum for about $11.
Yeah.
And I think that at the closer you get to the place, not only do fewer and fewer people speak English as you get closer and closer to the place, but our English will begin to suffer as we step into this.
Yeah.
So those are the gems of San Francisco.
Yeah, I like it up there. Yeah. Nice.
AndySummers.com, everybody. Go get your tickets there or at the link on the show page. Andy Summers, we love you. Thank you very much.
It's great to talk to you.